Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised, as the following is for educational and entertainment purposes only, presenting the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial as reported by Inner City Press. A moment that finally arrived after months of speculation, court documents, and mounting public pressure, with Sean Jay-Z Carter stepping into the courtroom, not as a mogul, not as an icon, but as a man defending himself against disturbing allegations, and as a defendant for Diddy, whose world was unraveling as freak-off parties became part of sworn testimonies, dragging Jay-Z into the storm by association, his name attached to rooms he denied entering, events he claimed never happened, and victims he insisted he never met, leading to the pivotal question of how he would defend himself in front of the jury, the media, and the culture, and what he would say when the whole world was watching, marking this as the moment Jay-Z testified as the courtroom settled after a long morning of legal back and forth, with the prosecution preparing to reintroduce evidence linked to Cassie Ventura's testimony, while Diddy's lawyers shuffled papers with a demeanor that was half bored and overly confident. Just before the doors opened, not quietly or with warning, but deliberately in a way that suggested the truth was finally about to catch up with those who had been trying to outrun it, as Jay-Z entered wearing a midnight navy suit tailored so sharply it might as well have been armor, not looking left, not nodding, without an entourage, Beyoncé, or the Rock Nation team. Just him, a living legend stepping into a courtroom that hadn't expected to see him in this manner, not on the witness list, not under oath, prompting gasps that filled the room as the gallery stood halfway in reflex, a journalist dropping her pen, Cassie Ventura leaning in to whisper to her attorney, and even the judge slightly raising her brow, as Diddy, turning toward the entrance, didn't blink, his eyes locking onto Jay like he was watching a ghost he buried 20 years ago rise from the dirt, an unplanned moment for the press and the public, as Jay-Z's request for a sealed session was overruled by the court in favor of transparency, leading to Jay about to give the performance of his life, not with lyrics, but with memory, taking the stand, swearing his oath, and filling the courtroom with federal prosecutors, entertainment journalists, and attorneys who once negotiated million-dollar deals at brunch tables, now leaning forward as if listening to the first verse of a track they weren't supposed to hear, his voice calm, controlled but tight, like a rope pulled in both directions, as he began by stating, "I want to make it clear, I came here because silence ain't an option no more." A sentence that changed everything, because when Sean Carter speaks, not as the mogul, rapper, or billionaire businessman, but as the man behind it all, it's not just a testimony, it's a reckoning, with Jay-Z wasting no time, not starting with denial, but with context which proved even more dangerous, acknowledging, "Yes, I was invited to Diddy's events. Yes, I attended. But let me be clear. What I saw and what I was told were two very different realities." Words spoken carefully and deliberately, leaving his lawyers sitting stiff and the defense looking confused about whether this was helping them or if he was flipping. An answer that would unfold slowly, piece by piece, as Jay-Z told the court something nobody expected. "I saw the setups, the NDAS, the confiscated phones, the back rooms with curtains. I never went in those rooms. I never signed those papers. But I knew," pausing before continuing, "I knew something wasn't right." A sentence that broke the courtroom wide open because it wasn't just an admittance of being present, but an admittance of witnessing the mechanics of the machine Diddy allegedly built. A machine described in excruciating detail by Cassie, Dawn, Richard, and others, leading Jay-Z to turn toward the jury, explaining, "You see, in this industry, there are parties, and then there are parties. And the ones I was at, the ones I started walking away from, those weren't parties anymore. They were systems-designed experiences, the kind that aren't about fun, they're about power, controlled," prompting the prosecution to ask, "Did you ever witness anything criminal?" To which Jay-Z hesitated before replying, "Not directly, but I saw enough to know I shouldn't be there," as he described one event in 2015. A party in Miami supposedly for Christian Combs' birthday, where he said things got strange. "They had masks," he stated, "like real masks. I didn't laugh. I didn't stay." Then looking directly at Diddy and saying, You knew people trusted you. You used that. A moment that caused Diddy's jaw to drop for the first time, followed by the part that turned Jay-Z's testimony from damage control to destruction, as he told the court about a private conversation he had with Diddy in late 2018, just after whispers of investigation started circulating in the industry, where, according to Jay, Diddy called him to get ahead of something, saying, "They're coming for me. You got to be careful who you stand next to," leading Jay to ask Diddy point blank, "Did you do anything I can't come back from?" And Diddy allegedly responding, "It's just parties, Jay. Just experiences. Nobody gets hurt unless they want to." A revelation that caused Jay's voice to crack slightly as he admitted, "That was the last real conversation we had," before looking at the courtroom and stating, "I stopped answering his calls after that," explaining that he began distancing himself, skipping Revolt events, pulling out of collaborations, and even instructing Roc Nation reps to keep their brand away from whatever Puffs had going on, before the prosecution revealed something else. An email exchange between Jay-Z's legal counsel and an anonymous party from early 2020, in which Jay's team was warned that NDAs from past events might be weaponized against those who were present, even if they weren't involved, prompting Jay to nod and say, "I knew what that meant. They were going to use silence as a shield. I wasn't about to get caught behind it," before finishing the third part of his testimony with a sentence that made headlines before the court even recessed. "He used to be my brother, but now I see who he really was and who I almost became by standing too close," leaving the room silent as the fallout was just beginning. And as Jay-Z sat forward in the witness chair, his hands folded, his voice strong but undeniably emotional, the courtroom, already rattled by allegations and rumors, now felt a shift in weight, with Jay-Z not just a celebrity dragged into another scandal, but a husband, a father, and a man defending everything he had built, stating, "I need to speak about my family," while looking directly at the jury. "Because when my name gets dragged, so does theirs," silencing the room as jurors leaned in, reporters stopped typing, and even Diddy, who had been scribbling notes, looked up, while Jay-Z described the toll the accusations had taken on Beyoncé and their children, saying, "Blue Ivy's old enough to read headlines now," and revealing, "She came to me asking what a freak-off was. That's not something a father should have to explain." Also describing how after the initial lawsuit named him, reporters swarmed their home, paparazzi camped outside Blue's school, and headlines blurred fact and fiction, turning his life into a tabloid war zone, continuing, "My wife has stood by me through everything, but this was different. This wasn't business drama or career competition. This was a nuclear bomb dropped on our family. And the worst part, it was all based on a lie," before turning to the specific claim that he and Beyoncé attended the alleged Miami freak-off in 2015, reaching into a folder and pulling out flight records, stating, "On the night in question, we were in Paris," explaining, "It was our anniversary. We stayed at Hotel Plaza One. I've included the hotel receipt, photographs, video timestamps, and multiple eyewitness accounts. We weren't there." As the prosecution reviewed the material, the judge asked the clerk to confirm the dates, and everything checked out, proving Jay-Z had receipts, literally. But he didn't stop there, calling out the culture of clickbait and unverified gossip that had allowed these rumors to thrive, asking the room, "When did we stop demanding proof? When did accusation become conviction?" Emphasizing that his reputation wasn't just his own, but tied to his wife's, his children's, his entire legacy, stating, "I've spent decades building something clean, something that lifts our community, and in a single headline that gets smeared with no evidence," mentioning Beyoncé several times, but being careful not to lean on her fame or status. Speaking of her as a mother, a woman blindsided by allegations she had no part in, declaring, "I came here to defend truth and to make sure no one, not even a billionaire, gets away with burying people in lies," maintaining his composure but with his voice taking on a sharper edge as he addressed the next major claim, the infamous Miami party at Gloria and Emilio Estefan's mansion, where he was allegedly seen by multiple witnesses during Diddy's alleged freak-off event, starting, "I want to be very clear," Jay-Z began, "I have never in my entire life attended a party at Gloria Estefan's house. Not in Miami, not anywhere. unfolding several documents, including a timeline of his activities from that week supported by security detail logs, transportation manifests, and charity event programs, walking the court through every hour of the date in question, explaining, "On the night of the alleged party, I was in Los Angeles. I was attending a charity dinner hosted by the Sean Carter Foundation at the Peterson Automotive Museum," and stating, "Here's my speech transcript. Here's the guest list. Here's a photograph with the mayor," presenting irrefutable evidence as the court clerk displayed a screen showing the museum's security log, capturing Jay-Z's entrance and exit down to the minute. But the hardest-hitting part wasn't the proof, but the breakdown of how these rumors started, with Jay-Z calling out the vague phrasing in lawsuits and the power of innuendo, saying, "You don't need a lie to be loud, you just need it to be repeated," explaining that his name was attached to these rumors not because of any witness, but due to a pattern of him attending Diddy's events in the past. Lamenting, "That's what this has come to. I once went to a brunch, so now I'm complicit in everything this man's accused of," telling the jury that the media narrative had spun wildly out of control. "They printed that I was seen in a place I've never been, and that one sentence turned into dozens of articles, thousands of tweets, and irreparable damage," revealing that his team submitted a report showing how many news outlets repeated the same false claim. Not one reached out for comment, not one tried to verify. And as the judge acknowledged the record's validity, Jay-Z looked toward the prosecution and said plainly, "If you're going to drag a man into a trial this big, you better have more than gossip and guesses," before the final stretch of his testimony took a darker, surreal turn as he addressed the ocean of conspiracy theories since Diddy's downfall, shaking his head, glancing at the jury and saying, "I've been called a lot of things in this industry, but Illuminati puppet, master manipulator, murderer by association, that's a new one." Acknowledging the internet frenzy, how TikTok accounts posted deep dives connecting him to everyone from Harvey Weinstein to R. Kelly to Jeffrey Epstein, stating, "They say, where there's smoke, there's fire, but sometimes the smoke is just fog machines and YouTube edits," bringing up specific accusations about his involvement in Aaliyah's death, orchestrating the deaths of Michael Jackson and Tupac, and paying off people to stay silent about Diddy's freak-offs, asserting, "Not one of these has been backed by a single shred of evidence, but they get repeated because it sells." Then taking out a printed Reddit thread with thousands of upvotes speculating about his supposed inner circle with Beyoncé and Diddy, holding it up and declaring, "This is what passes for journalism now," explaining how the theories affected real people. "I've had family members get followed, business partners backing out, even death threats, because someone on the internet connected dots that don't exist, but then unexpectedly admitting that silence may have worsened things. I didn't speak up sooner because I thought the truth would be obvious, but maybe I underestimated how fast lies travel when they come with good production value and ominous music," ending his statement by saying, "I'm not asking you to like me. I'm asking you to listen, to think, to demand proof, because if we don't draw the line here today, then none of us are safe from what comes next." As he sat back, his testimony complete in a courtroom where whispers had become headlines, his voice having just redrawn the battle lines. And as he finished his direct testimony, the room settling into a tense hush, the lead prosecutor stood, an aggressive federal litigator known for shaking even the most polished celebrities, adjusting his glasses and looking straight at Jay-Z, who remained poised but visibly alert, beginning with, "Mr. Carter," the prosecutor began, "you say you were never at Gloria Estefan's house. You've provided logs, photos, timestamps. That's all compelling." To which Jay-Z nodded slowly, "Because it's the truth." But the prosecutor continued, pacing slightly, "You have, by your own admission, attended Diddy-hosted events in the past. High-profile ones, brunches, fundraisers, award parties." And Jay-Z said carefully, "Yes, public events, industry events. Nothing like what's being described here," leading the prosecutor to pause and lean in, asking, "Did you ever witness anything inappropriate at any of those events?" Causing Jay-Z to hesitate before answering, "Not for long, but enough for everyone to notice," and then firmly stating, "No, I saw celebrities networking, music playing, the usual," And you never saw Cassie Ventura at one of these events or any behavior that made you uncomfortable. Prompting Jay-Z's jaw to tighten as he replied, Cassie was often present. She was Diddy's partner, but I never saw her in distress, and I certainly never saw the things she's described in her testimony, leading the prosecutor to shift gears with, so, when you hear now what she's claimed about coercion, about abuse, about the so-called freak-offs, you're saying you're completely blindsided? To which Jay-Z replied firmly, I'm saying I didn't see it, and if I had, I wouldn't have stayed quiet, resulting in the prosecutor nodding and remarking, that's what Russell Simmons said too, causing a gasp in the room and Jay-Z to blink, his poker face breaking momentarily, leading his attorney to bark, objection, which the judge sustained, though the implication lingered as the prosecutor continued to push the idea that Jay-Z's proximity to Diddy gave him access to more than just music industry clout, floating the possibility that Jay-Z knew more than he was admitting. But without direct evidence, it was all strategy as the jury watched, some skeptical, others sympathetic, and Jay-Z's final response before stepping down cut through the tension. I'm not here to protect Diddy. I'm here to protect my name. And if I was part of that world, if I even suspected it, I wouldn't be testifying. I'd be on trial. As he stepped down, adjusting his suit jacket and briefly glancing toward the gallery where Beyoncé was absent, her absence feeling present in every stare, exiting through the side door escorted by security, while the courtroom buzzed with murmurs, headshakes, and gasps from those in disbelief and those in vindication, as reporters exchanged frantic texts and notes and social media erupted with headlines like, Jay-Z breaks silence under oath, Jay-Z versus prosecution, and Jay-Z defends Beyoncé and family from Diddy ties. With the internet already rendering a verdict while inside the room, something more complicated unfolded as the jury remained unreadable, with Juror 4 scribbling steadily, Juror 9 staring at the empty witness chair, and the alternate juror biting his pen cap in silence, eyebrows furrowed, while one spectator, a former Bad Boy intern, was seen wiping tears, telling a reporter, he talked like he didn't know, but we saw him at those events. Maybe he didn't see what we saw, or maybe he just looked away. And Cassie Ventura remained stone-faced, but when Jay-Z's voice cracked mentioning Blue Ivy, she briefly looked up with a questioning expression rather than empathy, as even Diddy, stoic throughout much of the trial, showed signs of twitching, tapping his pen faster, his eyes scanning the room, realizing Jay-Z's denials had hit him not as a betrayal, but as a signal that the ship was sinking and everyone was trying to find a lifeboat, leading the judge to call a short recess as voices clashed in the hallway. Some on Team Jay-Z praising his receipts and transparency, while others weren't buying it, viewing it as saving face after being part of the system forever, leaving the truth somewhere in the middle with nobody truly knowing, but everyone having an opinion. Back at Rock Nation headquarters, the mood was tense with no official statement post-testimony, only Jay-Z's attorney, Alex Sparrow, offering a brief quote. Mr. Carter testified truthfully and courageously. We stand by his integrity. Outside the courthouse. But the world wasn't waiting for legal summaries, as within 12 hours, every major outlet dissected his testimony, some praising his transparency, and others calling it calculated damage control, with Beyoncé's name trending globally for 36 hours straight, despite her publicist declining to comment, leaving fans divided between fiercely defending her and questioning the depth of the couple's connection to Diddy, while the prosecution regrouped, understanding that Jay-Z hadn't shattered their case but had complicated it by humanizing himself, distancing his family, and redirecting the spotlight, also raising the industry's pattern of plausible deniability, leading the DA's office to release a quiet statement that while Mr. Carter's testimony was significant, their investigation remained ongoing and extended beyond any one individual, essentially saying, this isn't over. And then came the wild card, 50 Cent, never one to stay quiet, posting a photo of Jay-Z on the stand with the caption, nice performance, but we ain't forgot them brunches, my guy, which went viral instantly, followed by other celebrities beginning to reappear with cryptic posts, such as Alicia Keys reposting a quote about truth cutting through silence, Questlove tweeting cryptic emojis, and even Oprah posting a vague story about building from ashes, indicating that Jay-Z's reputation had taken a hit but hadn't collapsed, and his testimony, for better or worse, marked a moment where silence was no longer an option, making it clear that in this case full of twists, the courtroom wasn't just trying Diddy,